Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Considering that we're probably from so many different time zones, it's afternoon here in Zambia. Happy International Women's Month to you all. I'm happy and honored to have this opportunity to basically have a little bit of time to discuss a topic that is of great importance, which is specifically around our shift towards a green economy and a care society to enable us to attain a sustainable future. And as introduced, my name is Rabecca Hichilo. I primarily help businesses with implementing sustainable practices and shifting towards creating a sustainable value for their shareholders and stakeholders. So firstly, when it comes to moving towards a green economy, what do we think about when we're talking about a green economy? I think from first principles, it's basically an economic system that is guided by environmental and sustainability principles. And our current economic model is quite unsustainable because it's driven by the use of finite resources. I think for us that are basically in the developed world, we see the finite resources. We're heavily dependent on minerals. And these mineral resources are actually critical for our energy transition. There's also excessive consumption and ultimately environmental degradation. But the consequences of our actions in the current economic model that we're working with is that we're seeing a lot of effects of climate change, pollution, loss of biodiversity. And over the past year, I'd love to believe that there's very little people that still doubt that the impacts of climate change are actually not evident, because we saw the warmest year on record. Down here in my country, in Zambia, we're experiencing a severe drought, which is heavily impacting our food security, energy production, which is heavily dependent on hydroelectricity. And ultimately, we're basically facing what it could look like in a few years or a decade from now if we do not transition to a green economy. So what can we do to start reversing this trend? So it's not an exhaustive list, honestly, and I look at it from a perspective of businesses because I work primarily with businesses. And firstly, encouraging businesses to integrate principles of sustainability, equity, and social responsibility into their policies, practices, and everything that they do. Doing a little bit of CSR is not enough. Is the CSR impactful? Is the CSR basically meeting the needs of stakeholders? So we need to start to think differently as business owners, business participants, employees, or anybody that is running an organization. It's not just for the for-profit businesses. We also need to start to think about incentivizing businesses to set net zero targets. We have a net zero target as a world, right, in order for us to maintain our global temperatures. So how can we trickle down this target all the way down to the smallest business? So there's never a business that can be too small to set a net zero target. It should not be left to the preserve of the big companies, because ultimately we're also part of this environment. And every single contribution, every SME, every business that can think sustainably, think about reducing their footprint, their carbon footprint, we will collectively ultimately have an impactful progress towards achieving these goals. So I look forward to a day when businesses will ultimately be assessed as to how sustainable they are, as opposed to how profitable they are. As it currently stands, businesses are assessed as to how profitable they are. But I would love to believe that we can transition to a world where we assess businesses as to how sustainable they are, because ultimately, what good is profit if we don't have a planet to spend it on? And then moving on to a care society. Caring for our society as part of our transition or our quest for sustainability is equally as important, because a green economy must be achieved in a just manner. It is a well-known fact that marginalized communities are heavily impacted by effects such as climate change. So we have to prioritize social welfare, equity, and inclusivity in ensuring that individuals have access to the most basic needs, whether it's education, healthcare, and social services, so that we can ultimately reduce the inequalities. Because when the effects of climate change, for example, are felt, they in fact become very exacerbated when there are inequalities that exist. And in line with our current theme of International Women's Day, we should then invest in women in order for us to be able to accelerate our progress in climate action and building a sustainable future, because women are at the front line of caring for our society. Women are at the front line of building the small businesses that are thriving. And women are at the front lines of effectively supporting sustainable solutions. So we should find ways of investing in women and understanding the gaps that exist currently in investing in women's progress. And in conclusion, a call to action to all of us ultimately, that we have a commitment to ourselves to basically transition towards a green economy and cultivating a society that cares. Not only because it's our moral obligation, but it actually is our responsibility to safeguard our planet. I thank you all. I thank you, Mahin, and everybody else at Women Ascension, and everybody that has joined, all the speakers, and everybody that has spent time being a part of this wonderful program. Thank you.